I would like to invite the Consul General to open proceedings.
Your Eminence, Archbishop MAKARIOS, Honorable Minister for Small Business, Lands and Property, Multiculturalism and Sport, I've got a lot at stake. This is Darren Bark, CEO of the Jewish Board of Governors, Dr. distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, allow me to begin by acknowledging the Gadigal people, traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend the respect of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to today. About a year ago, our keynote speaker, Dr. Leon Saltiel, visited Cyprus, where he delivered lectures in schools and elsewhere to raise awareness on the Holocaust and the story of the Greek Jews. I had known Leon from the time I had served in the UN in Geneva about 12 years ago. So we met up in Nicosia for dinner, and I mentioned to him that I was going to be transferred to the other side of the world, Sydney. So during our discussion, we both agreed in principle that it would be a good initiative for the Greek community in Australia to get acquainted with the story of the Greek Jews. Fast forward to the end of 2022, and at one of my first meetings with His Eminence, he expressed great interest in supporting such an event. His Eminence mentioned the critical role played by the Orthodox Church in saving Jewish lives in Athens, Zakynthos, and Volos during the Nazi occupation of Greece. And he agreed that it is vital to make this story known to the community and beyond. Today's initiative, may I dare to say, goes beyond the strict confines of other events of the Greek community. Thus, I thank you personally, Your Eminence, for thinking outside the box, for your very open-minded and forthcoming approach. Special thanks also go to Darren Bark, the CEO of the Jewish Board of Governors, for embracing our initiative to have a series of events during Leon's short stay in Sydney. Thank you also to one of our own, Steve Camper, who's a long-standing friend of the Jewish community. And of course, I cannot but stress the extremely positive role of the Australian Archaeological Institute at Athens for hosting yet another event of the Consulate. Thank you to both Stavros Paspalas and Theodora Yiannis. Leon Saltiel, who is a leading authority to speak on today's subject, has come all the way from Geneva to enlighten us on a story, a very tragic story, which until recently was not very well known in Greece. This year we commemorate 80 years from the events of spring of 1943, when the occupying Nazi authorities rounded up the Greek Jews in Thessaloniki, and began deporting them to the Nazi death camps, mainly to Auschwitz-Birkenau, where 94% of them perished, with only 2,000 surviving. In recent years, Greeks have been gradually acquainted with the stories of their Jewish compatriots of Thessaloniki. In public discourse, we also hear about the Romanian Jews of Yanina, an indigenous Greek-speaking Jewish community which first settled in the South Balkans in the first centuries AD, and which unfortunately also perished during World War II. We learn the stories of individual Greek Jews, such as Mordechai Frizis, the first high-ranking Greek officer who was killed in the Albanian mountains in the war against fascist Italy in December 1940. He was the highest-ranking casualty until that moment. Today, we take pride in the fact that the decision to construct a Holocaust museum in Thessaloniki has been taken, to be funded by the governments of Greece, Germany, the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, as well as by the Israelite community of Thessaloniki. We're also devising a national strategy to combat anti-Semitism. This progress in raising awareness, in making people conscious of the story of the Greek Jews, has also coincided with the unprecedented strengthening of relations between Greece and Israel, two democracies which share the same value system in a turbulent region. In conclusion, I want to refer to a personal testimony which I will never forget. In 2006 in New York, as a young diplomat in the permanent mission of Greece to the UN, I was instructed to participate in a meeting of the Security Council with the now deceased Holocaust survivor and Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel. At the time, there was a looming genocide in an African country, and the International Criminal Court wanted to raise awareness. At that meeting, I heard an inspiring speech by Elie Wiesel, who told us that the fuel which allowed the Nazis to perpetrate their heinous crimes was the indifference of the many, the apathy of the silent majority. This is why raising awareness is so crucial. This is why I think that today's event is probably the most important thing that the Greek Consulate has organized, at least during my short stay here, my short tenure. The promise never again will be fulfilled only through the education of the new generations, only when schools across Europe and beyond include in their curricula a special section dedicated to the Holocaust. I wholeheartedly thank all of you for coming here tonight. My greatest thanks go, though, to my friend Leon for taking the time and the effort to cross the globe, literally, and come and enlighten us on such a tragic chapter of Greek history. After all, this is a Greek story, which all Greeks should be aware of. Thank you for your attention.
I would now like to welcome to the microphone Mr. Darren Bark, Chief Executive, New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies.
Well, thanks so much, Keynote, and again, thank you so much to Yiannis. Good evening, everyone. Kalas Vera. I'm Darren Bark, Chief Executive of the Jewish Board of Deputies. I too would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet tonight and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. It really is fantastic to be among such special guests, but also to be among such special friends. Again, really to thank Yiannis for not only hosting tonight, but for your incredible leadership and friendship, not just of our organisation, but of our community. I would also like to acknowledge the esteemed Holocaust historian, Dr Leon Saltiel, visiting us from overseas, and also our keynote speaker. Thank you so much for being here. Stavros Campbell, Minister for Multiculturalism, proud member of the Greek community, but also a tremendous and incredible friend of the Jewish community. And already in such a short time as Minister, you've done so much for all of us across New South Wales, and we're so grateful. His Eminence Archbishop MAKARIOS, thank you so much for being here. It means so much to have your presence here tonight. Our dear friends at the Consulate and the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese, and just to also acknowledge my predecessor, Vic Elliott, who's also here tonight. Thank you so much. Faith leaders, representatives, as well from the University of Sydney and other distinguished guests. Look, tonight's event is important for so many reasons. We're so privileged to have Leon here with us in Australia, as I've said, knowledgeable, humble, and also esteemed. But tonight is another opportunity for us to reflect on the close friendship and relationship of the Greek and Jewish communities. And in addition, just a few days ago, the world marked Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Remembrance Day, where we remembered 6 million Jewish lives and the millions of other lives that were taken, murdered during the Nazi regime. And each year, we light candles in their memory. We tell stories about them and share photos and videos of their lives. We do this so that we can remember their memories and their legacies of all of those who perished, so that they can be still remembered and alive for generations to come. We also honour our remaining Holocaust survivors here in New South Wales, who really are our heroes, our role models, and our inspiration. Because without their eyewitness accounts, it's impossible to understand the brutality of the Holocaust and what humanity is capable of. So we cherish every moment we have with our remaining survivors. But tonight, we remember the 43,000 Jews of Thessaloniki who were transported to a place of true hell, Auschwitz-Birkenau, and most of them never returned. It is incredible to think that 80 years ago, Greece had a thriving Jewish community. Thessaloniki once had a 50,000 strong Jewish community and rose perhaps close to 5,000. But today, Greece's Jewish community looks very different, numbered at about 6,000 members. This, however, presents an opportunity to rebuild, to never forget the past, to celebrate the present, and to look forward to the future. And the Greek and Jewish communities today enjoy a warm friendship. There's a Holocaust museum at Thessaloniki. The ties between Greece and Israel grow stronger and stronger, as Yiannis said. And the Jewish community is deeply grateful for your friendship, your compassion, and solidarity. And by simply being here tonight, you're each playing an important role in ensuring that the world knows about the horrors of the Holocaust and, importantly, learns from humanity's darkest chapters. So thank you again for your attendance. Thanks for those watching online, and to the organisers, particularly Yiannis, for putting together tonight's event. Thank you so much.
I would now like to welcome to the microphone to address the foreword, to present the foreword, His Eminence Archbishop MAKARIOS, Primate of the Greek Orthodox Church in Australia.
Εξοχότατε κύριε Γενική Πρόξενο της Ελλάδος, εδώ στην Αυστραλία, στο Σίδνεϊ, εξοχότατε κύριε Υπουργέ και αγαπητέ μας φίλοι και αδελφέ, Steve Cantor, Your Grace, Άγιο Πρωτοσύγγελε, my beloved leaders of the Jewish community, my beloved brothers and sisters, we are truly grateful to our loving God for the opportunity provided this evening to remember and to honor all those souls of the once flourishing Jewish community of the city of Thessaloniki who were deported and died in consecration camps some 80 years ago in 1943. This solemn 80th anniversary brings to mind the horrific and incomprehensible acts that took place during World War II at the time when Greece was occupied by German forces, which continued to cause profound affliction and anguish of heart at the realization of humanity's capacity for such utter destruction and carnage. Indeed, we are forced to reflect on the hideous face of evil and human depravity that plagued much of the last century. The depth of human pain and suffering is almost too much to bear. Innocent and precious children, young women and the elderly were slaughtered, their lives taken away from them through no fault of their own, but simply for believing in the one God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And for their religious beliefs, these people had to come face to face with unspeakable actions of evil and violence against them. What is equally tragic today is that such hatred, suspicion, and even depraved predilection to dominate and extinguish other cultures continues to exist, which shows that we have not fully comprehended and learned from the lessons of the past. This evening, however, our two communities stand united in the same way that the Greek nation and the Orthodox Church stood by the Jewish community during Shoah, that is the World War II Jewish Holocaust. We especially call to mind this evening our ever memorable brothers in the Lord, His Beatitude, Archbishop Damaskinos of Athens, their eminences, Metropolitan Joachim of Volos, and of course, Metropolitan Chrysostomos of Zakynthos, who not only openly and quite forthrightly opposed the deportation of the Jewish community of Greece, but were also ready to march together with those whom they considered to be their fellow citizens into the gas chambers. Indeed, those sentiments expressed in a letter of protest to the Nazi leadership during World War II by the incumbent Archbishop of Athens on the time are precisely those very same feelings and thoughts of my humble person this evening. In part, the then Archbishop of Athens wrote, "Our holy religion does not recognize superior or inferior qualities based on religion, and thus condemns any attempt to discriminate on created racial or religious differences," he said. Far from being the cause of divisions and dissensions, religion is a power that is meant to unite, to build bridges, and to create a culture of unbreakable solidarity between people, as suggested by the etymology of the word religion itself. As is well known to many, the word religion is derived from the Latin religere, meaning to hold together or to bind. Truly appreciating the connective power of religion, the Archbishop of Athens was able to save thousands of Jews. He did this by creating baptismal certificates, which provided over 27,000 Jews-forged papers, which allowed them free passage through Nazi checkpoints. Archbishop Damaskinos also urged countless monastic communities to shelter Jews and enjoined his priests to hide fellow Jews in their homes. Further to the courageous and uncompromising actions of the Archbishop of Athens, mention but must also be made of Metropolitan Joachim of Volos. When in 1943, the German military leadership asked the Metropolitan for information about Jews living in the city of Volos, he replied with an unprecedented boldness. "I am a Jew," he said, convinced that in the eyes of God there is neither Jew nor Greek, no longer slave or free, no longer male and female. Moreover, when the resident rabbi of the city of Volos was ordered to submit a list of names of all those from within the Jewish community who resided in the city, Metropolitan Joachim immediately not only ordered his priests to protect their Jewish neighbors, but also signed his own name on a letter of introduction that the resident rabbi would subsequently use as he sought protection for himself and his flock for the Nazi forces. The Metropolitan wrote, "I wholeheartedly recommended the teacher, namely the bearer of this letter, and I ask every brother who is going to meet him to listen to him carefully and in good will, and to give him any kind of assistance or anything he may be in need of for his life as well as for his flock, so they do not become victims of this difficult situation." The heroic actions of this Metropolitan resulted in more than 700 Jews fleeing from the city of Volos and being protected in the hands of strangers from the surrounding mountainous villages. Thirdly, the heroic stance of Metropolitan Chrysostomos of Zakynthos, which resulted in not even one Jewish life being lost during the Holocaust, cannot go unnoticed. Like the Metropolitan of Volos, he too identified entirely with the plight of the Jewish residents of the islands of Zakynthos, so that when asked by the German commander to submit the names of Jews, he wrote but one name, his own name, saying, "You can arrest me, not them." Indeed, he went further and stated openly, "I will march together with the Jews straight into the gas chamber." Numerous Orthodox clergymen at the time refused to leave the side of their deported Jewish sisters and brothers and followed them to detention facilities, prisons, and extermination camps, becoming prisoners themselves and coming face to face with terrible acts of brutality and cruelty. Under the leadership of His Holiness, our Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople, head of the family of the Orthodox churches around the world, a decision was passed by the Holy Synod quite some time ago, proclaiming the 20th of July be the date within the Church's liturgical calendar when all saints who sacrificed their life in an attempt to save Jewish brethren and finally died to consecration camps be commemorated. All these people are shining examples, enduring and timeless lessons of compassion and love for all people. My beloved friends, there is so much that binds our two communities together. We are two people who place our faith and trust in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We hold fast to the sacredness and divine dignity of every human being, irrespective of race, color, or gender, since, as our common scriptures tell us, all human persons are created in the image and according to the likeness of God. This comes from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 26. We both affirm the sacredness of God's word to the extent that, as we read in the book of Maccabees, the world was created not out of things that existed, namely out of nothing, which ultimately means out of love. This comes from the book of Maccabees, chapter 7, verse 28. And therefore, we have a sacred obligation to be faithful stewards of God's word. Indeed, bound together by God's divinely inspired word, our two people, our two nations, have remained steadfast in adversity and resisted oppression, remembering, for example, the words of the prophet Isaiah, "For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand, it is I who say to you, do not fear, I will help you." All the Psalms where we read, "The Lord is near to the broken-hearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord rescues them from them all." In the same way that the Orthodox Church did not discriminate between people of different religious background, so too, to this day, the Orthodox Church does not treat those of other religious persuasions unfairly or unfavorably. Being a jurisdiction of the Ecumenical Patriarchate, the title ecumenical, highlighting its universality, not in any sense of holding any domination over the world, but in the sense of accepting all human beings as equals the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of Australia is also underpinned by this ecumenical spirit, and as such is intolerant to all forms of xenophobia, racism, or discrimination. On the contrary, our Archdiocese is characterized by a clear conviction in the equality of all people before God and the equality of all people before one another. By way of a more concrete example, here in Australia, there is no institution under the auspices of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of Australia which would show prejudice and not offer its services to people of different backgrounds. The Church welcomes all people and opens her arms without prejudice to all in need of our Lord's comfort and consolation. There is no institution, whether this is our social welfare centers, aged care facilities, or those looking after people with special needs, our school systems, that would turn anyone away simply based on their religious persuasions. It is incumbent upon us all, therefore, to decry and to condemn all forms of anti-Semitism, finding courage to oppose all who would wish to repeat the horrors of the Shoah. We must boldly and with one voice denounce all forms of bigotry, subjugation and suppression, all forms of xenophobia. Indeed, we must remember that any crime committed against another believer of any faith, let alone another human being, is ultimately an abomination and crime against God Himself. For this reason, the hope is that we may continue to stand together in seeking ardently to rekindle the imprint of God's image within the hearts of all people, so that the world might be empowered to take choices that lead to life, peace, and stability. Perhaps there has never been a greater need for us to go out into the world and to witness the fruits of the Spirit, among which are love, joy, and peace, so that all forms of such injustice and helpless suffering might never be allowed to take place again. In closing, may the prayer of King David, how precious is your steadfast love, O God. All people may take refuge in the shadow of your wings. This prayer may become our heartfelt prayer as well. My humble prayer is that the Lord may have mercy on us all. Furthermore, my prayer is that the memory of all those who died in the Holocaust be eternal. Indeed, may their lives be preserved by the power of our love and our memory. Thank you very much.
I would like to now introduce our speaker, Dr. Leon Saltiel. Leon holds a PhD in contemporary Greek history from the University of Thessaloniki and has been a postdoctoral researcher at the Graduate Institute of the International and Development Studies of Geneva, Switzerland, and the Aristotle University in Thessaloniki. His publications include The Holocaust in Thessaloniki, Reaction to the Anti-Jewish Persecution, 1940 to 1943, which won the 2021 Yad Vashem International Book Prize for the Holocaust Research. Do not forget me. 3 Jewish mothers write to their sons from the Thessaloniki ghetto in Greek and in English. He is the Director of Diplomacy, representative at the UN Geneva and UNESCO, and coordinator of the Counter-Anti-Semitism of World Jewish Congress. I'd like everyone to please welcome Dr. Saltiel.
Your Eminence, ladies and gentlemen, in the room and online, I'm truly honored and humbled to be here today and see a room full of prominent Greek and Jewish leaders. Thank you for being here. I want to thank our hosts, the Australian Archaeological Institute of Athens, for hosting us so generously this evening. Mr. Camper and Mr. Stavro, thank you for being here. Thank you for the important work that you're doing. I want to wholeheartedly thank the Consulate General, my friend Yiannis Mallikourtis, for inviting me here, for organizing a series of events, and for hosting me with his family in Sydney, and making this visit a truly memorable and meaningful event for me. And also the staff of the Consulate for helping organize my visit and this event tonight. Your Eminence, thank you so much for being here and for your words. Indeed, Archbishop MAKARIOS, Metropolitan Joachim, Metropolitan Chrysostomos, are heroes for the Greek and the Jewish peoples. Thank you for being with us tonight. I would also like to thank the New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies, also for supporting this event tonight, and for their very welcome. Although I'm here for only a week, I already feel it's like home for me. So thank you. As time is short, I'll go to the presentation. It's a sad story. It's a sad story that I'll tell you tonight. But as it's the week of Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Remembrance Day, and the anniversary of the 80 years of the deportation of Jews in my hometown of Thessaloniki, I will speak about these events, but I'll start from ancient times until this day. So I hope in 20 minutes I'll be able to take you around this journey with me. So this is a picture of Holocaust survivors of Thessaloniki that you can also see when you visit the Holocaust Museum of Washington, D.C., which is very striking photograph. So this is a painting that you can find in the Museum of the Vatican that shows Alexander the Great in the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. And this is really how I start my presentation today, which is when the Greek and Jewish cultures and peoples meet. This is when Hellenism and Judaism meet, and as Churchill said, you cannot understand the world today without Rome and Jerusalem, without Athens and Jerusalem. So literally, this is the moment, the starting moment of Western civilization, the fusion of Greek and Jewish cultures. And following the fact that Palestine became part of the Macedonian Empire, many Jews established in what is today Greece. And this is what we call the Romaniote Jews, which until to this day, although very few, continue to speak Greek in their liturgy and their customs. And we have proof of the existence of these Jewish communities in Greece in the New Testament. This is the letter to the Thessalonians by Apostle Paul, who is addressing, who preached in 3 consecutive Sabbaths in the synagogue of Thessaloniki and in other places in today Greece. The big change happens in the Middle Ages, after the Spanish Inquisition of 1492, when thousands of fleeing Sephardic Jews settled in what is today Greece and Thessaloniki, and really changed the character of the city and the whole region. The Jews become very prominent in business, in commerce, in science, in trades, in all sectors of life, in business, and really Thessaloniki becomes a hub of economic activity. The Ottoman Empire connecting to the west,
the whole Balkan Peninsula, really becoming a very prosperous and significant community. And it's a city where the majority of the population is Jewish. Maybe it's the only city in Europe and in the world with a Jewish majority. It's a very unique case in history where Jews played a very important role not only for the city but for the whole country and the region. 100 years ago, a bit more than 100 years ago, the city joined the Greek. The city became part of Greece, and then the Ottomans ceded control. And this is where a big Jewish community now become Greek citizens, and they get integrated, incorporated into the Greek state. 5 years from then, we have the big fire of Thessaloniki. You can see here, you see the burned part of the historical center of the city, and the vast majority of this Jewish community became homeless, and that many of them migrated because of the poverty and the very difficult conditions. This led to the restructuring, and today you can visit, the city has very little to do with that city that existed a bit 100 years ago. Here you see the old city of Thessaloniki, the burned part, and also on the right, you see where it says cemeteries, and this huge area is the Jewish cemetery of Thessaloniki that existed, also very ancient, maybe the most ancient in Europe, and was destroyed unfortunately during the Second World War. This is just the numbers because 5 years from then, in 1922, of course, you have the Greek-Turkish War that ends with the Lausanne Treaty of 1923, with exchange of populations. So thousands of Muslims leave Greece, but also thousands of Christians come and settle in Thessaloniki. The exchange happened on religious terms. So the city now changes, and also the Jewish community with it. So from 80,000 Jews in 1912, when the city became Greek, was liberated, absolute majority. At the age of the deportations, we speak about 20-25% of Jews, but still having a very prominent and important role in the city. Just a graph to show you these different demographic changes from the Middle Ages till recent years. In the 30s, you have a rise of some anti-Semitic and nationalistic movements in Thessaloniki, affected by, of course, what's happening in Europe at the time. They led to a pogrom, we call it the pogrom of the Campbell district of Thessaloniki, which also led to many Jews. These are homeless Jews who were left after the burning of this Jewish district, and again, some new waves of migration. That's in the 30s. Here you have dictator Yiannis Mallikourtis, who was the Greek leader. He became leader in the coup in 1936. And you see people around him in fascist salutes. He was an admirer of Mussolini, but he wasn't anti-Semitic at all. In fact, the Jewish community felt very comfortable with him. And he banned these groups that I mentioned that caused these anti-Semitic incidents in the years prior. And again, you see Metaxas and people with a salute. So much so that the Jews were very comfortable, and he really normalized relations. That when Mussolini decided to invade Greece, and he said the very courageous no, Ochi, to the ultimatum of the Italians. Thousands of Greek Christians and Greek Jews enlisted and fought courageously, and were able to push back the Italian invader. And here you see very ill-equipped Greek soldiers fighting in difficult terrain in the snow of the mountains in Albania. The cartoon of the time where the big fat Italian is afraid of the little Greek, and of course the Germans are looking around the corner and they are concerned about how the Axis powers is looking after this defeat, the first defeat of the Axis powers. And of course the Germans invade Greece to try to save the prestige of the Axis and to save the Italian ally who is losing the war. And the Germans, of course, with superior war machines, occupy Yugoslavia in a week, invade Greece in April 1941, when they capture Saloniki and eventually the whole of the country. Greece is occupied, is divided into 3 zones. It's important for understanding also the different survival rates and what happens in the different cities during this time. The Germans keep Salonika, so it's really a geographical misfortune that this big hub of Jewish presence was under direct control of the Germans, and some key areas, the border with Turkey, which was neutral, some key islands of the Aegean, the port of Piraeus, Crete, which is a very important also geostrategic asset. The Bulgarians annexed the territory south of their country, and the Italians controlled the rest of the country until, of course, the end of 1943, which they capitulate. So again, this map is only a snapshot of the initial, at least of the time when I'm going to narrate this story. This is just a little bit for you to understand the timelines of what I'm going to speak about. We have the German army entering April 1941. They withdraw in October 1944. The first anti-Semitic mass measure I'm going to speak about is the gathering of all Jewish males in Liberty Square in July 1942. The destruction of Jewish cemetery in December 1942. The implementation of the anti-Semitic measures starts in February 1943. The Yellow Star, the ghetto, and the other measures. And the first train leaves in March 1943, and by August, the vast majority of the Jews of the city has been deported. This is a scene of the German army entering the city, welcomed by some of the Greek officials of the time. Then marching, if you know Salonika, the White Tower is a landmark. Here are the German tanks driving in front of the seafront. Similarly, another picture of the German army, Camara, another Roman ruin, but it's also a significant location in the city. The Germans start some small measures. This is a sign in the shop that Jews are not welcome. But really, the measures intensify, as I said, in July 1942, when they gather all Jewish males aged 18 to 45, around 9,000 people. In the summer, the summer in Greece is very, very hot. This is the middle of July. This is a very central location, Liberty Square in Thessaloniki. And these are actually the veterans of the war with the Italians. This is the age group. This is the national heroes of Greece. And the Germans gathered them here to register them for slave labor. But before doing so, they had to wait in lines. You see, they're trying to cover themselves from the strong sun. They made them do humiliating gymnastics. They beat them up if they don't comply. They throw water to people who faint from the heat and the suffering. And then, they're gathered and they're sent to do very hard labor. They're sent in all different parts of Greece to work on slave labor, construct working oars, construct train lines, dig mountains, and do other great airfields. And these are accountants, teachers. They are not meant to do very hard labor, let alone in the difficult Greek summer, and let alone with very poor hygiene and nutrition. So many start to die or catch diseases. So the community negotiates a deal with the German authorities where they pay what we call a ransom, a big amount of money, and you can see how the check was issued by the community and then countersigned by Max Merten, who is the representative of the German forces of Salonika, and that's a ransom to liberate those Jews from slave labor. And another part of the deal was to destroy the Jewish cemetery, which I told you was at the center of the city. And this is how it looked like in February 1943 from photographs of the Red Cross delegate of the city, really stones and bones, the rubble. Then Eichmann sends his men, Dieter Vicenzeni and Alois Brunner, who in cooperation with Merten, they start the deportations, they issue orders, one after the other. Jews have to wear the Yellow Star, they're taken and kept in ghettos. The two big ghettos in the city were actually mixed. Christians would also live there, but they would move most of the Jews there. And then here, where you see the Baron Kish Quarter, this was a small ghetto that was used as a transit camp. It would be close to trainway lines, so it would be the They would put the Jews on the trains, send them to Auschwitz, it would be empty, they would bring more Jews from the rest of the city. That's how the Germans were able to deport the Jewish population. This is Jews moving to the ghettos from different districts. Again, that's an interesting photograph. It shows you the Jews here being moved to the ghetto, and then you have the bystander, the Greek citizens who look what's happening. And here you can see even the father and the sister of the photographer who from their balcony see the Jews being moved to the transit ghetto I spoke about. The ghetto is barricaded. The Jews had to pay for their own tickets. These are some of the tickets that were issued. They had to pay for their own deportation. And from Thessaloniki to Auschwitz, 5 to 8 days, in cattle cars, humiliating and very bad conditions. Vast majority of them being killed upon arrival. Now, I'm going to bring the story to today. So I don't want to finish just there, show you what has happened since. The survivors come either from hiding in Greece with the help of the Christian neighbors, either having survived the camps, or from fighting the resistance. And they try, of course, to find the ruins and to recreate their lives. You have mass weddings that happened in Salonic at the time. You know, survivors try to get married, create a family, either continue remaining in Greece or create a new life elsewhere, in France, the US, Australia, in Palestine, that's soon become Israel. Here are orphans, Jewish orphans being moved to Israel. Again, this is the cemetery. They try to do some ceremonies, see what's left from this glorious past. And again, 1946-49, we have the civil war in Greece. So, you know, Greece had the unfortunate circumstance that after this horrific 4 years of German occupation, to have a 3-year bloody war among Greeks. And many of the Jews who were fighting and were saved by the partisans, they were caught in between the two sides, and many of them had to flee as well, because it was very difficult for them to continue being kept in this civil war. You have, in 1949, one of the first books that was written about these tragic events, one of the first efforts to keep this memory. Again, not very much is being said. As I said, it's the civil war. There are different priorities. People want to reconstruct. They want to create new lives. In 1959, Merton is in a visit to Athens. He's arrested. 1959 is his trial. He's convicted for his role in the deportation of the Jews and many other crimes. But a few months later, he's released, sent back to Germany, where they found him inclusive evidence to continue the process. Greece is a poor country, and Germany is a big supporter and importer of Greek products. So, you know, it's a different times, and but it's a story that while it brought the Holocaust out, it didn't really resonate much with the wider Greek population. 1962, this is a picture of the Holocaust commemoration. So the community commemorates the Holocaust, but still remains a community event. Here you have the construction of, with a lot of presence, of course, you can see the army, the Greek authorities. The construction of the first Holocaust monument in the city was located within the Jewish cemetery. So it still remains on Jewish space, this memory. And this is the monument that you see. 1967 to 74, yes, it's the Greek junta, the military dictatorship. So again, not the time to speak, difficult time for all Greeks, not the time for the Holocaust memory to come out. In the 90s, really, you have the emergence of Jewish memory. You have a lot of survival testimonies being published. The story comes out of the community more to the public space. In 97, you have the inauguration of the Holocaust Monument in Thessaloniki with the President of the Republic, Mr. Stephanopoulos, you can see this picture. And really, the monument has become a landmark of the city of the King of Spain, who visited 98. Again, this is descendants of Spanish Jews, so really there's also affinity with Spain. And many dignitaries come. We have the creation of the Jewish Museum of Thessaloniki 2001, keep the memory of the customs alive. Patriarch, of course, the Noble Bartolomeo, who is also an honorable member of the community, strong supporter. He also came, paid his respects, and he comes regularly and meets the Jewish community. In 2004, the Greek Parliament unanimously named 27th of January as Holocaust Remembrance Day, and now it's being commemorated annually in schools, by the government, by the parliament, by the cities, by the regions. 2006, the monument came to the location of Liberty Square. So it was somewhere, it was in the former Jewish quarter, and if you visit Thessaloniki today, you'll find the Holocaust monument on the site of this event that they spoke about. 2013, they started an annual march from the monument, from the Liberty Square to the train station, supported by universities, the scout movements, the governments, of thousands of people every year who pay their respects to the deported Jews. 2014, we have the election. This is Mayor Boutaris of Thessaloniki, the former mayor, who did a lot on Holocaust memory. And here, this is when he took the oath of office for his second term, and he wears, as you see, the yellow star as a protest for the presence of members in the city council of Golden Dawn, which was the neo-Nazi party that was elected, unfortunately, in Greece back then. And this is his way of protesting their presence by showing solidarity with the Jewish community. A very exceptional man that he has done a lot for Greece and the Jewish community and the city and beyond. And I believe he also visited Australia, I was told. He came here. And this is, again, Mayor Boutaris at the monument at the university to commemorate the destroyed Jewish cemetery that they also spoke about in 2014. 2016, you have a lot of schools that do events. They put these memory stones that is very regular now. They do it in all over Europe. You have signs, plaques, like really the city, there is a re-emergence of Jewish memory, statutes, again, street names. 2020 was the announcement for the creation of the Holocaust Museum. And you can see the Greek Prime Ministers with the Prime Minister of Israel and the President of Israel who laid the foundation stone. Really, it's a project that has huge international dimensions and a lot of support from all corners of the globe. 2021, we're in COVID, but they illuminate the White Tower, the symbol of Thessaloniki, with the We Remember sign, and never again. Again, very important show of solidarity and to keep the memory alive. Here, 2022, I added this. It's a football game that happened in Salonika, friendly game between Aris Thessaloniki, one of the traditional teams, historic teams of the city, and Maccabi Haifa, which was the champion of Israel. And both teams come out together with T-shirts saying "United Against Anti-Semitism." And all profits came to the Holocaust Museum. So really, you can see now how this memory and these activities are also becoming part of civil society, and the whole society is embracing this memory and the need to fight anti-Semitism and to keep the memory alive. And I want to conclude with this quote from the President of Greece, Katerina Sekalaropoulou, who a month ago, participating at this annual march that I spoke about, you can see her there with many other dignitaries. She said, and I quote, "These heinous events mark the life of Thessaloniki and altered violently its rich multicultural identity. It's very important that, in the last years, Thessaloniki has recognized her share of responsibility and has clearly condemned the mistakes of the past in an effort to heal the historical trauma." So I think these words coming from the head of state of Greece are very meaningful and really mark an acknowledgement of this past, of these tragic events, and also open the way for a lot more knowledge, understanding, awareness, and cooperation on these topics for a better future. So with that, thank you very much for your attention. we go to the questions and answers, I have a video to show you. As it was said by Theodora, one of the books I've published is called Do Not Forget Me. It's a compilation of letters sent by 3 Jewish mothers during these tragic events that I spoke about from the ghetto to their sons who are living in relative freedom in Athens, as you saw under Italian control. And during COVID, the city of Thessaloniki has a cultural festival, an annual cultural festival. During COVID, because they couldn't do the events live, they did a documentary, which includes a reading of the letters. So I want to just play a clip of this documentary, where these letters from the mothers about to be deported is read by the President of Greece herself, President Saltiel. So the video, the sound is in Greek with English subtitles.
Χθες το βράδυ μας ειδοποίησαν ότι θα φεύγαμε σήμερα το πρωί. Τώρα δεν ξέρουμε ποια μέρα αυτής της εβδομάδας. Αν δεν είναι αύριο, μέχρι τις 15 πρέπει να φύγουμε. Το βράδυ δεν κοιμάμαι και έχω τη σκέψη μόνο σε εσάς, ότι αυτός ο άσχημος αέρας δεν θα φυσήξει και προς εσάς επίσης. Ο Θεός να φυλάει τα αγαπημένα μου παιδιά, γιατί αν δεν θα ξέρω που είστε, οι σκέψεις μου θα περιπλακούν ακόμα περισσότερο. Πηγαίνετε μια πολύ ωραία επίσκεψη στον Γούζιο και δώστε του τα χαιρετίσματά μου. Αυτός που έκανε τόσα για εσάς και ακόμη μπορεί. Προσπαθούμε να είμαστε μαζί με την Τζίνα, αλλά δεν ξέρουμε πού θα μας μπλοκάρουμε. Σε κάθε περίπτωση, πιστεύουμε να είμαστε μαζί ή με την Ίντα, που είναι στο ίδιο τετράγωνο με εμάς. Εγώ είχα το σάκο μου έτοιμο, αλλά δεν είναι πολύ σταθερός και δεν μπορώ να τον σηκώσω. Σήμερα η Τζίνα θα με βοηθήσει να φτιάξω έναν άλλο. Αυτή προσπαθεί να με κάνει να δω τον ορίζοντα λιγότερο μαύρο. Αλλά δεν μπορώ να παρηγορηθώ με τη σκέψη του πότε θα σας ξαναδώ. Ο Θεός προφέρει στις προσευχές μου, αλλά εγώ ακόμη προσεύχομαι. Ο καιρός εδώ βοηθάει στη μελαγχολία. Αν ο καιρός αλλάξει σε εσάς, γιατί είναι άνοιξη, φυλαχτείτε από το κρυό όσο μπορείτε, γιατί αυτές οι αλλαγές είναι πολύ επικίνδυνες. Να είστε καλά και να είστε πάντα μαζί. Προσπαθήστε να με βρείτε με την Τζίνα, γιατί αυτή η σκέψη με βασανίζει. Πώς θα μάθετε που βρισκόμαστε. Η Τζίνα έχει καλύτερη διάθεση κάποιες φορές και με ανεβάζει λίγο. Ο Θεός να σας φυλάει και να μας ξανασμίξει όλους με καλή υγεία. Σας φιλώ με όλη μου την καρδιά, με όλη μου την ψυχή. Μην με ξεχάσετε, πολύ αγαπημένα μου παιδιά. Ο καλός Θεός ας δείξει επιτέλους έλεος στους αθώους που επιθυμούν μόνο μια απλή ζωή με την οικογένειά τους. Ο Θεός να σας φυλάει και να σας προστατεύει από όλα τα κακά. Η μητέρα σας, η οποία έχει μόνο μια σκέψη, να δει τα παιδιά της υγιή. Η Τζίνα θα σας γράψει. Η μητέρα σας, νεά μου.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We will take a few questions, but it wouldn't be right for me not to say a few words. Firstly, our director, and often shared with us a story of how he helped to shelter as many Jews as he could, in whatever capacity. His brother died on the invading front, as did my grandmother, and we shared a lot of the stories from my grandmother of those horrors and witness. I'd like to commend the Consul General to collaborating with the Australian Archaeological Institute again in presenting such a lecture. The Institute is about retelling history, and we know that the darkest side of history is the ones we try to avoid talking about, but they are the most important. A great person once said, and we all know it, it's not the words of our enemies that hurt us the most, it's the silence of our friends.